Film it. Okay, so welcome. It's parshat Balak, but today is a very special day. It's Yud Bet B'Tammuz, the 12th day of Tammuz, where the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, was the sixth Rebbe, was freed from prison. And he was freed on the 13th day, and the offices were on the 12th day, and the offices were closed, so he finally was let out on the 13th day. So that's why Yud Bet and Yud Gimel Tammuz is a big, very, very special day. A cup of water. Okay, so now the Rebbe said himself, he says it's not a personal victory, but it's for all Jews who want to learn Torah and keep mitzvot. And he said, thank you, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niya bidbaro. Yes, Parve, I made them. Okay, so the Rebbe said, not only did the Holy One, blessed be He, redeem me on the 12th day of Tammuz, but also all those who love the Holy Torah, keepers of the mitzvot, and also those who are called Yisrael, which actually includes all types of Jews. So it's a holiday for everyone. So that's why this day was designated as a day of gathering to strengthen, like Hitvadut, we make Hitvadut, we say L'chaim, an awakening to strengthen the Torah, to strengthen Yiddishkeit, Yahadut, everywhere, to increase, the Rebbe said, courage in spreading Torah and reinforcing Judaism, and doing whatever we can to strengthen it. Actually, the imprisonment resulted from a kitrug above, kitrug b'shamayim, which was like an accusation came out, but it was definitely from above. And so through the redemption, the fact that he was let out, the activities of spreading Torah and strengthening Yiddishkeit in general, as well as spreading the Chassidut, the wellsprings of Torah, was definitely strengthened. And this led him eventually to leave Russia. And after a series of events, he arrived in the United States. He came to America, and this enabled his work to strengthen in such a way he was able to spread Judaism and the wellsprings of Torah, the Chassidut, to all corners of the world from America. So that's why this day is very special. And being that the imprisonment represented an obstruction to spreading Torah, because the Russians in Russia, the communists, they didn't let him spread Torah. Why was he put into prison? Because he spread Torah. That was his sin, yeah? And so all the Jews were put at a risk. In other words, the entire continuation of Judaism, the transmission of the Torah, and Judaism for all Jews was put on hold. It was b'sakana. So the redemption, which was a victory in this matter, marks the beginning of a new phase of spreading Torah and spreading the wellsprings of Chassidus. And this is a preparation for the final redemption. Because the Rebbe says we are the seventh generation, we are the generation that will welcome the Mashiach, and now it's up to us to bring Mashiach. That's what the Rebbe said, that we should do everything we can to bring the Mashiach. So just before we start with Parshat Balak, I want to tell just a little story that I heard that really helps us think, like, what can I do to bring Mashiach? So there was a story told about a young boy, an American teenager, who wanted to become the world champion in karate, in karate. So he came to his master and he said to him, like, what do I need to do to become a pro, to become a champion? So the master said to him, if you're really serious, meet me at the beach at 4:00. So he comes the next day to the beach and he tells him, take a deep breath and dive in. And that's what he does. Now a minute passes by and he wants to lift his head above the water, and the master doesn't allow him, and he keeps him in the water. And he's fighting with all his might to lift his head above the water and catch a breath of air, but the master holds him down for 10 seconds more. And finally, he releases him. So the boy was very, very upset. And he said to him, did you want to drown me? I mean, like, what was this all about? So he says, listen, go to the shore and calm down. And then he comes to talk to him. When he calms down, he says, listen, I want you to know that I love you very much, but I wanted to teach you a lesson, a life lesson. He said, just as you were invested in all your strength, you invested all your strength to lift your head out of the water because you understood that you're fighting for your life. That's the way I want you. You have to invest all your strength if you want to become a champion. So this is what the Rebbe was telling us. Here we want to bring Mashiach. We have to invest ourselves in such a way. Like, just imagine, what would you do if you're fighting for your life? You would do everything possible. And we have to do everything we can to bring Mashiach. So that was an introduction for this week's parsha. Let's say l'chaim. Okay. So we are in parshat Balak. Balak was the king of Moab, and he decided he wants to curse the Jewish people. Why does he want to curse the Jewish people? Because he's afraid. He was really afraid for his country. And he saw that the Jews were conquering. They conquered the Amorites. So he was really scared. So he goes to hire Bilam. Who was Bilam? Bilam was a prophet. He was a non-Jewish prophet. He was also a magician. And Moab and Midian were enemies, but they connected together for the hate of the Jews. And together, they knew that the power of the Jews was supernatural. So they said, we have to look for a supernatural way to get rid of them. So they hired Bilam. Now, Bilam said, since the Jews' strength lay in their mouths when they pray, so he says, I'm going to defeat them with a stronger mouth by cursing them. So here they were ready to pay him a lot of money. He was, we say that Bilam hated the Jews even more than Balak, because Balak had a reason to destroy the Jews, but Bilam had absolutely no reason. And why would he care? So he wanted to erase them off the face of the earth even more than Balak. And we're told, I saw somewhere it says, the sages say that his hatred goes back to the time of our enslavement in Egypt, because he was the one who advised Pharaoh to stop the growth of the Jewish people by throwing the newborn babies into the Nile River. That was to torture them, to torture the Jews, and giving them the hard labor that they worked, avodat parach. That was Bilam. Now Balak knew Bilam way before. They grew up in the same town, and he could vouch for his powers. He knew firsthand, because Bilam prophesied that Balak would become a king, and which he did. And the Zohar tells us that when Sichon, Melech Amori, the Amorite king, was fighting with Moab, he hired Bilam and his father to curse the Moab, and as a result, they won the war. So he knows that Bilam definitely has power. Now the Medrash tells us that Bilam was so great a prophet that his prophecy was actually equal to Moshe Rabbeinu. We know that God creates the world with a balance, that everything that exists in the positive has a negative counterpart. So he appointed a prophet, the equivalent of Moshe Rabbeinu, and actually Hashem gives us equal opportunity. That's the free choice. A person can make a good choice, it can make a bad choice. But so the Goyim would come and say, oh, you gave the Jews a prophet, so that's why they did tshuva. If you would have given us a prophet, maybe we would have been better. So he says, okay, here, I gave you a prophet. Bilam took a lot of money. He was very expensive, and Balak was willing to pay his high price. And he offered him respect, kavod, and riches, and honor for his services. And Bilam said that since the godly spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, rests on him only at night. Hashem appeared to him only at night, not during the day. So he says that to ask Hashem what to do. So stay overnight, and we'll see at night if Hashem lets you. Tomorrow morning I'll tell you what Hashem says. And Hashem said to him, don't go. Now he was very vain, and he didn't want to admit that he's in Hashem's control. Hashem tells him what to do. So he said, oh, you're not, you're ministers of a low rank for me, like you're too low. I need ministers of more more important, the highest ranking officials is what I need. So he says, if Balak was serious, he would send his highest ranking officials and offer him a lot more money. Now Balak was so desperate that he did just whatever Bilam asked for. And so he sent him high officials. And then Bilam asks Hashem again, can I go? So at this time Hashem says to him, you know what? This is your parnasa. This is, they're offering you so much money. I'm not going to get involved. Go. But just remember that whatever you say is what I tell you to say. So Bilam wakes up like really excited, and he saddles his donkey. And he does it by himself. He doesn't even have anybody else do it for him. He does it by himself. And Hashem says to him, what's your excitement? Remember Avraham when he went to bring his son Yitzchak for Akedah? It says that Vayashkem Avraham baboker. Avraham woke up early in the morning. So he emptied you. He was there before you, and he did it full of dedication to fulfill the command that I gave him. So then we see that Hashem is angry at Bilam for going, and he sends him an angel to block him. Now Bilam doesn't see the angel, but the donkey sees the angel. It's an angel holding a sword, and it says Malach Hashem Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei. It doesn't say Malach Elokim. Elokim is Gvura, is strength. Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei is Rachamim. That's mercy. So, in other words, the angel was trying to stop him from sinning, to save him, and he didn't see, and the donkey saw the angel. So he turned aside. He turned aside so that he shouldn't have to, he'll get killed. He's holding a sword. Now Bilam gets angry at the donkey and he beats the donkey. So the angel stood in the path of the vineyard. It was like a vineyard, and with a wall on both sides. And the donkey sees the angel, so he pressed against the wall. Like he can't go straight. He pressed against the wall, and he actually squeezed Bilam's foot against the wall. He crushed his foot, and Bilam was like really angry again, and he beat the donkey. Now he comes to a narrow place, and there's no room to turn, not right and not left. And the donkey sees the angel, so it crouched down under Bilam. And the Medrash teaches us that suddenly, when he gets angry at the donkey suddenly opens his mouth and speaks. We know that there were 10 things that were created Erev Shabbat Ben Hashmashot. One of them is Pi Ha'aton, the mouth of the donkey. And so Hashem is trying to show Bilam that the tongue and the mouth are entirely in God's hands. Here he thought he's going to use his mouth to curse the Jews. You think you're in the power of the speech? Look, if I want, I'll make the donkey speak. And the donkey saw what Bilam didn't see. So he says, it's in my hands to the extent that I can make an animal speak. And Hashem wanted Bilam to realize that when it would come time to curse the Jews, he would be entirely in God's mercy. So just, he's giving him a remez, a hint. And then Hashem opens the mouth of the donkey, And the donkey says to Bilam, what did I do? What have I done to you that you struck me 3 times? And shalosh regalim. It says shalosh regalim. And Bilam says, 3 times he says. And Bilam says to the donkey, you have humiliated me. This is in front of all these high officials. If I had a sword in my hand, he said, I would kill you right now. And the donkey said to Bilam, am I not your donkey in which you have ridden since you first started until now? Have I been accustomed to do this to you? And Bilam said, no. The Talmud explains that the dialogue between the donkey and Bilam was as follows, that the Moabite dignitary said to Balaam, why don't you ride a horse? Like, why would he take a donkey? Most people ride a horse, you don't ride a donkey, right? And Bilam said that he sent his horse to graze. So the donkey right away said, am I not your donkey? And he said, well, just for carrying burdens. So the donkey says, on which you have ridden. So Bilam says, only on one occasion. And she says, the donkey says, since you first started until now, you have always ridden on me. Moreover, by day, I provide you with riding, and by night with intimacy. So we know that there was a very disgusting relationship between the donkey and Bilam. And Bilam stood there utterly humiliated. And they said, oh my goodness, if there's this man who was bested by his donkey, would never be capable of defeating an entire nation. Look, his donkey just like was victorious over him, put him in his place. Then what's the use? And then Hashem opens Bilam's eyes, and he sees the angel with the sword right before him. And the angel says to Bilam, you know, this is because you set a journey against Hashem and for striking his animal. So Bilam says, I'm sorry. He admitted that he sinned, and he asked the angel if he should go home. So the angel said, no, don't go home. Go with the men. But remember that you can only say what Hashem wants you to say. Now the question arises here, like all the Mefarshim, all the commentators, they say, what did God want from Bilam? The first time the messengers came, he said, don't go. Then the second time he says, okay, go. Then he sends an angel to block him and not to go. And the second time. And then he says, okay, should I go home? And he says, no, go. So yes or no, should I go? Should I not go? Why does Hashem keep changing his mind? And what did Hashem really want from Bilam? So there are many explanations, but one of the many explanations is that Hashem did want Bilam to go and bless the Jews. The problem is that Bilam was much too vain and self-centered to be a shaliach for Hashem to bless the Jews. So in order that God's energy should be able to flow through him, he has to become humble. He has to become transparent, we say, you're a tzinor, like the blessing could come through you. So first of all, he had to realize that he's powerless, that he's just a pawn in God's hands. So how is that going to happen? So the first group of the regular ministers that came, Hashem told him not to go, because he had to go through this humiliation. He needed to experience more. Like it wasn't enough, that he sort of was humiliated in front of them, but he hid it. He said, oh, you're not, superior enough. So Hashem sent more important ministers, and in front of them he would be totally broken. And that's why when the second group came, Hashem said, okay, go. Then Hashem sends the angel. And Hashem sends the angel to get in his way. And he made the donkey speak, which brought about this, humiliated him entirely. And it shattered his ego, right? He's like down in the dumps, right? And now he could be a conduit for bringing God's blessings to the Jewish people. So when he asked the angel, should I return? The angel said to him, no, you go. Because now that you're a broken man and you have no self-esteem whatsoever, yourself cannot get in the way. He's fitting to deliver God's message, God's blessings to the Jews. So, having been humiliated by his donkey and pushed around by Hashem, Bilam finally arrives in the capital city of Moab, and he was greeted. Who greets him? Balak. Balak greets him. He meets him, and he brings Bilam to what's called Bamot Baal, which was a very high place where they used to worship idols, and it overlooked the whole Jewish camp. Okay, it was like high on a mountain, and Bilam told Balak to prepare 7 altars, and he was going to offer a bull and a ram on each one of them. Why did he say 7 altars? So first of all, to counteract the 7 altars that the Jewish forefathers brought. You know, when it said the Shalosh Regalim, 3 times you hit me, we have the three Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that are our strength. So here Avraham brought 4 altars, and Yitzchak brought 1, and Yaakov brought 2. So altogether we have the 7 altars, that the 7 karbanot that our forefathers brought. So here that's 7. He brought 7. Also there are 7 Noahide laws, which coincide to the 7 karbanot. And Hashem appeared to him and put words in his mouth. And Bilam returns to Balak, and he speaks really loud, and everybody was able to hear. The Medrash describes how God blasted Bilam's words over the whole world, so that everyone would hear. And he says, Balak, I'll translate it from the Chumash. It says, Balak, the king of Moab, has brought me from Amram, from the mountains of the east, saying, come curse Jacob for me, come invoke wrath against Israel. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? And how can I invoke wrath if the Lord has not been angered? So this is what he said. This is what it says in the Chumash. How can I curse them? He says he knows the times when Hashem is angry at the Jews. That's a good time where he can curse because if Hashem is angry at them, so it'll work. But he says Hashem has not been angry at them for the past couple days. So how can I curse? If Hashem is not cursing them, then I have no power of cursing. So instead of curses, the most wonderful blessings and praise came out of his mouth. So Balak is very annoyed. He takes Bilam to 2 other places in the hope that maybe he'll have more luck cursing from here. And all the places were specific in that Balak knew that the Jews would sin in those places. So he hoped to be successful in cursing them from there. But every time Bilam opened his mouth, nothing but the greatest praises for the Jews came out of his mouth. He says, Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov. Look how the Jewish tents were positioned. Look at their modesty. No door looks into, no one house looks into another house. No one tent. Everybody lives in modesty. And he said, Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael. We say it every day in the prayers. In Shacharit we say, Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov. It's part of the first. Right after we say Hareini.
Sometimes I pray in French. It's which one?
Right after we say Hareini mekabel alai mitzvat aseh shel ve'afta l'reacha kamocha, we say Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. And now after Bilam blesses the Jews for the 3rd time, Balak gets really angry and he tells Bilam, leave, get out of here. And as he was leaving, Bilam turned to Balak and he prophesied what would happen to his people in the end of days, when Mashiach comes with the Geula. And he said, Darach kochav miYaakov, v'kam shevet miYisrael. Ar'enu v'lo ata ashurenu, v'lo karov. Darach kochav miYaakov, v'kam shevet miYisrael, u'machatz patei Moav v'karka kol b'nei Shet. The translation is, I see it, but not now. I behold it, but not soon. A star has gone forth from Jacob, and a staff will arise from Israel, which will crush the princes of Moab and uproot all the sons of Shet. And Edom shall be possessed, and Seir shall be the possession of his enemies, and Israel shall triumph. So Hasidic teachings explain why these great blessings had to come through a wicked person. Why did we have to get blessed from this Rasha, from this terrible person? So we're told that blessing the Jews was a preparation for Mashiach. That when every single creation will acknowledge its maker, will acknowledge Hashem and the greatness of the Jewish people, then Mashiach comes. So this process began when Bilam, the greatest Jew hater, he recognized the truth and he blessed Hashem and the Jews. So this was the beginning of the redemption.